favorite people to collaborate with, and is just a super lovely person and a very good friend to me. So thanks for being here with me today, Trish.
Thanks. I'm totally thrilled. I'm totally
Yeah,
thrilled to do this
me
with you.
too.
Really exciting. I think this is actually my first Facebook Live.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so I feel totally honored to be doing it with you.
That's great. And I wanted to introduce you really as a transformational facilitator and a expert in non-ordinary states and non-ordinary skills. And that's something that I've been studying with you, and that's been really opening my mind to a whole new way. And I think it's sort of a unique way. Like you really have this unique take on these non-ordinary states and non-ordinary skills. And what's so interesting to me is that it's really great for people that want to collaborate and to collaborate in a conscious way, and that a lot of us are looking to level up our skills around relationship, around communication, and we all need a little help in that department. I certainly have do and have benefited greatly from your take on things. So again, thanks for being here. And what can you tell us about the non-ordinary states and non-ordinary skills?
Yeah, it's actually a framework and a way of perceiving that I've developed over 30 years. So way back in the olden days of 1989, I actually had an environmental store, and I had all this passion about wanting to create a better world, and was already, like many of you that are watching, had this knowing that there's like a transition that we're in the process of. There really is this new way, a new level of consciousness that's wanting to emerge, that is emerging. And but one of the challenges I saw way back then was that we all have a different version of a better world, and we're seeing that more and more also just as you look around and what's happening on the planet, that we're getting more and more polarized. We're having more and more conflict as far as the view of the better world should look like. What does the future look like? And certainly when we're in the middle of something like the coronavirus, being able to have the same page and work together is becoming even more profoundly important. So what I found was, the surprising thing was, over the last 30 years, I found like there's these 4 core desires, these 4 things that everybody wants. As I worked with them more, I not only are these desires, but I also started to see that these are skills. Like, so for example, want connection, to be loved and loved, and to belong. And yet nobody's really teaching us, how do we love? Like, right, we often talk about that, I love you, but what does that mean? And how do I actually do that? And we need is love in the world, but how do we actually do that? So I started seeing that in the process of connection, for one, these 4 things. The second is expression. As much as we want to belong, we also want to be separate, distinct. We want to be special. We want to be our unique selves. And we also then we want to contribute. Purpose is the third one. We want to come together and create something and be part of something greater that actually has tangible mission, and the feeling of creating something together, that I'm contributing somehow to the whole. That's purpose. And the fourth was growth, this idea of tomorrow being better than today, progress. That as much as we want sort of structure in the normal and the known territory of purpose, we also want the unexpected. We want surprises. We want to feel like life is exciting and something new is emerging. But the twists around those we end up causing all sorts of misunderstandings about what those 4 are. And simultaneous to my whole better worlds exploration and trying to figure out, well, how do we do this? I also was having all of these non-ordinary experiences. I had a lot of spiritual development, and I was having these just sort of spontaneous static states, often, in relationship, in my bed, in the world, when I was dancing. And I was starting to have these really expanded states of consciousness coming in, and being really curious about what was I doing that was creating these. So these days, a lot of the people I'm talking to are having experiences with sacred medicines and with all of, deep meditation and Kundalini yoga. Well, those experiences and those flow states, all of those I found are actually linked to these 4 same things. These skills that when you develop these 4 meta skills, gives you access to the non-ordinary, to these expanded states of consciousness. So as I kind of put those together, like our personal desires and also these meta skills to be able to access these alternate states of, or these heightened states of consciousness, I really started to kind of reframe everything as what being non-ordinary means to me is about dropping in so that you're in deep alignment with life. These four forces, these four meta skills are also the core of how we align with life. And they're also the common operating system that allows us to align with each other. And what would the world look like if we were in deep collaboration with each other and with life? That's a pretty different than a lot of us have in the world right now with each other.
Yeah, I think it is, and most of us are operating in one or two of these four things, right? So
Right.
we have one, like I did the assessment, and you helped me figure out like my two strong ones, and they're sort of at the opposite ends of the polarity of the other two, and we need to really develop all of them to live a full life, right? Because that's part of the principle of this.
Right. And this is where I saw it as a real paradigm shift, that it's not just about like, oh, how do I get connection or expression? It's how do I do them at the same time? So what I found are two dominant patterns, even though we individually do them really creatively and we come up with all different variations on how we're trying to get connection, expression, purpose, and growth in our lives. But the two dominant ones I see often are people who are expression growth people and people who are connection purpose people. And the connection purpose people are all about belonging and merging, and often connection becomes about sameness. People like me, and we should all be together. We should be thinking similarly and feeling like-minded, like-hearted. But also in connection and purpose, it's all about the greater whole, the greater good, and about this sense of sort of merging in, that I want to belong and be part of something. Whereas expression growth often ends up is more the focus on I want what I want and how do I get it.
Right.
And this idea of desire and power and life force growth is really about life force. And what I found was interesting is, mission purpose people often have a hard time with manifesting, have a hard time with knowing what they actually want. They get merged in. We're talking about the empaths, right? Well, as an empath, kind of become like an amoeba, where you sort of end up in this like, what's me, what's not me, because the express growth, and we'll talk about at the end of this, or as we progress through the call, I'll give you an actual exercise about how to do it. But without that sense of your own personal desire, it's really hard to collaborate, because you end up just kind of being a people, or being somebody that takes care of other people rather than like, what do you want? And if you really want to be in deep collaboration, you have to what you want, because otherwise it's not collaboration.
That's really hard for empaths, like so many of my people are empaths and sensitive, so it's kind of like my home crowd here. And I think that's a concept that maybe they can't even really get around their head. It's just like it's all about merging with the other so that you can figure out what they need. And as a healer, that's a handy tool to have, because it allows us to feel what our people need and provide that for them. But the downside of it is getting lost, not feeling yourself, not being able to advocate for yourself, feeling guilty about having needs, not even being able to feel your needs, not being able to express what they are. Like there's kind of that and I like the amoeba, like I had to really laugh when when you started calling me an amoeba. I was like, oh my God, I'm an amoeba. And then I was like, oh my God, I am an amoeba. And I sort of had to own my amoeba-ness. And then, and I found a lot of, hope, I don't know, wisdom, comfort in like, well, there's another way. So let's talk about the amoeba and the stances a little bit, because I think that's like super relevant.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I want to just sort of show is the opposite too. Is I mean, your amoeba-ness is actually your superpower too. Like you don't want to give that up, because like you're saying, it's the gift that allows you to be able to heal, be able to merge and feel the other person. But how do we use that gift without it then becoming about overwhelm and having way too many channels open?
Right.
And just to sort of name the other stance is often then what happens. We end up talking, I have to put up boundaries. I have to contain myself. And the expression growth dominant people they're not mergers, but instead it's about identity and about holding but then there's downsides to that because then you don't feel other people. And I think a lot of empaths are afraid that if I really allow myself to feel what I want, I'm going to be selfish, or I'm going to be right, or I'm going to be not be able to help and be of service in the way that I want to be able to be. But when we don't fully bring our instrument there, if we can't hold our own uniqueness in the midst of that, then it becomes a lot of mush. And I've actually found that being able to do the two at the same time, you get to use your superpower in an even higher level.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So in talking about that with a lot of empaths, you swing back and forth between being this amorphous amoeba, or the other option is I need to shut myself off and contain because I'm overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up putting this wall around, right, which is the me, not me wall and boundary to be able to shut yourself out. But then if you, hi Callie, your amoeba-ness is your superpower. Yeah, it is. And yet you want to be able to do it consciously without losing yourself. So when you have the wall up, we actually bring down our ability to feel other people and to be able to use our superpower.
Like, so at two ends of the polarity, it's like you have the amoeba or you have the wall, and either one of them is sort of polarized and uncomfortable, and it doesn't really allow you to access the depth of your soul skills.
Right. And the other challenge with that is when an amoeba meets a wall. So how many of you have had that experience of you being all lovey-dovey and being like, people, and you meet somebody and they're like, what do you do? No, back off, right?
Get that amoeba goo off of me.
Right. And then what do we do as amoebas? We're like, oh, I need to amoeba you more, right? And
right. Let me just like slime all over you and engulf you, and let me show you how much I love you.
Right. Yeah. And it's our natural ability, our natural desire to do that. But then what happens? The wall gets even more solid for the other person.
Right.
And if I'm an amoeba, well, then it's just like a big sort of mess of, and we end up having issues around being able to navigate that. And frankly, there's no juice there either. Have you noticed that when you blend in with somebody else and you stay in that state, there's not a lot of like life force energy there. It's kind of you kind of go into beings together, but then where's the chemistry of being able to really play off of each other? We need that distinction to be able to have that play and that excitement with another person for creativity.
Two amoebas are fun for a little while. Like you can sort of like connect around like the deep emotional states and share feelings and do all that, and then it's like but it doesn't have a chemistry to it, like you said. It doesn't have a energy to it. So yeah, I get that.
And I see the extreme amoeba stance where when you go extremely into the deep connection, you become pure consciousness. So when we meditate and we go into just no self, total no boundary, all of me drops away, then we're in an ecstatic state of connection in that place of pure consciousness. And that is an amazing, blissful state. But then you're on a park bench, right? Like I'm thinking of Eckhart Tolle, who for 2 years was like, I sat on a park bench being, and it is blissful, but we're also human. And we've come to do things and offer our gifts. And so how do we keep that expanded state while still being in our core? So that it's work to do for yourself as to hold yourself and to be your distinct self midst of also being in connection instead of a wall. Because too is walls meet and then that's the sort of, the usual of like, I didn't feel any connection with that person.
Right.
You have two people who are walls coming together, then there's, and so there's a lot of people right now in our culture, in particular in Western, it's all about self-identity. That on the flip side, for an empath, the opposite of an empath is I have to get what I want, and I have to be separate, and I have to have my individuality. But then when it comes to things like what's happening with COVID right now, you have to be able to do the both and of getting what I need and the greater good.
So how do we do the both and? So we need to do the both and in ourself, and then we need to do the both and in relationship. And that's where things get really groovy.
So the vision or the that I use, it does. What I really recommend is cultivating it as the way that you move through life. Like this is the default stance. And then you always have the ability to slide more into Amoeba if you want to have that experience, especially if you're with your partner and you want to feel that union. And you can always go more into the wall if you're like, nope, I need to really protect right now. Like you still have the full range, but it's more it's conscious rather than it being this subconscious way that we're reacting to things. So the way that I recommend it for most watching are, I think, going to identify as empaths. And so the ideal is when you feel yourself doing the amoeba or when you feel yourself having the wall, you want to take, which one to start with. Let's start with when you go into boundary, like when I'm separate, like I need to just have my space and separate from you, because that's often a reaction when we're feeling overwhelmed, right? So as an empath, if we're not overwhelmed, not as bad, but then we have those moments where we put up that wall. So instead of a wall, what I like to think of it as, you bring them in and actually until the point where it becomes a column. There's a sense of self that ultimately you are a unique point of consciousness, unlike other in the whole of the universe. Like your perspective, your Lisa Ness, my Trishness, unlike anybody else's view consciousness. And when we really feel that, when we feel self as that point of consciousness, that gives us another different superpower. We're able to say, oh, here's a unique view, and you have your unique view, and then what's the space between us? So that gives you that ability to say, oh, I am this consciousness. Now, the truth is we're all one also. But here's the ability. Can you feel the truth that, oh, if I slide all the way up my column, I'm everything. But here in this moment as a human, to feel your Lisa-ness and for me to feel my Trishness is the whole point of why I believe we're in human form.
Right.
Is to be able to have that play of 2 points coming together that are still part of the bigger consciousness to come together and create.
Right.
So if you can feel that column, and there's the chakra system, right? And right below, there's another point in the Eastern modalities of a point right below the belly button. It's about 2 inches below the belly button. It's called the hara, the tantien. And I think of that as the anchor point for human. So we can always slide up and experience ourselves as more, but it's really also important to be able to anchor into our humanness and into this unique point of consciousness. So take right now, yourself, everybody that's watching, yourself drop into a deep state of relaxing into yourself. And really, you can feel your sits bone and your, like if you're up straight. What does it feel to drop your consciousness all the way in that point below your belly button? And taking a breath, really relaxing in. I think often as empaths, we're not always in our bodies. So what does it feel like to be all the way in and relaxing into yourself, into your you-ness? And once you feel that, then you're able to, as you're holding that, now imagine that around you is this whole field of consciousness that you can tune into. But you're holding that sense of self, that deeply relaxed place of you, while around you, you're opening to feel what's around you. Can you hold both? Can you hold that deeply relaxed in yourself while you open and allow yourself to feel what's around you? So that combination, how does that feel?
I love it. I mean, and I know about the hara, the tantien, because I studied martial arts, for a long time, and that's a point that the martial artists really, really work on. Like they, studying martial arts develops that point, and it's the power point. So martial artists like move from that. You learn how to actually move your body from that point. So I totally get it. Like, I like being down in there. We got some of my students from the energy medicine school in the stream here today too. And so we, in the energy medicine school, we call that the physical life purpose point, and it gives us our physical life purpose. And the line of energy that you're talking about, we call the Hara line, or the life purpose line, because it, connects us to our life purpose when we're connected to that. And so, yeah, so I love that. I could totally feel like the column, that part of me, and that point of me at the Tantien. And then also, really, like, then how that expands out into the world, that allows me to
You
feel
can
the
still
world. I could feel
feel.
myself in the world at the same time.
Right. And what also happens with that, and you and I are now in relationship with each other, I can feel me and I can also feel you as your distinct point of consciousness. And what that
Right.
does, it's an amazing gift. All of us also want part of expression is all of us want to be seen. We want to be acknowledged for our gifts. And when we can actually hold our unique point and witness and feel and experience the other person's point of consciousness, it opens up a whole different space of connection between us. Because now it's not me merged in, where I can't really feel you and you can't really feel me, but rather now, we're able to really feel each other and also feel the truth of the connection between us. And
Right.
the other piece, one of the third forces, is the growth piece, is when you're deeply in and you have this open stance around you. Now also you can start to allow, this is a pat your head, rub your tummy and tap your foot kind of, but being able to allow force now to move up your spine, that actually activates power, and you can move from there. And it also activates desire, because it's life force moving through your unique point of consciousness that creates desire and helps us to actually manifest, because now life can meet us in our desire.
Mm.
So there's this
Cool.
really beautiful, but it takes some practice. It's like driving a stick shift manual car, where you have to learn to do extra things together. And the analogy that I would use is, like, we've often been taught in our culture that orchestra was conductors and followers. Everybody's trying to get there. The conductor gets to pick the song, and then we can kind of go along until we hope that maybe somebody will play our song, or we get to be the conductor. And this stance allows for a completely different paradigm, which is more like jazz improv, or more like music improv, where you have your unique instrument, I have mine, and we come together in order to lean into something greater than we could have done ourselves. But that takes this different set of skills, where I need to be able to listen and follow, but also, what's my instrument, what's moving me, what's my contribution in the midst of that. So this stance allows you to be able to feel yourself and feel your own instrument, and what's mine now to contribute in a way that brings something greater than you could do by yourself.
So cool. It's so
Yeah.
great. Yeah, and it's been really fun for me hanging out with you lately, and kind of, seeing how you model that for me, and what you have, how you're teaching me how to do that, and then seeing it happen inside of a group where, where there is then the jazz improv possibility happening. And I do think that it's so important to talk about, because this is a new way of being, a new set of skills. You call them meta skills, that as we know how to navigate through that in a conscious way, we can work on creating, because I was sitting here today thinking, kind of like, when are we going to get out of lockdown? It's been a month, and like, and people, I totally feel like the desire to go back to normal. And I'm like, well, I don't think we're going back to that. Like, what, we're not, it's not going to be like exactly like it was in the past. And we have an opportunity to create the world and in general, and our individual lives, too, from a much more conscious place. Like, what do we want? So if we got a kind of a clean slate, what do we want? How do we want to create our new life? And I think these skills, this model, and the skills that you teach in there can really give us like an opportunity, or a pathway, or a process for, coming up with something that, I don't know, if it feels better for all of us.
Yeah, and I think profound realization for me was that can be taught, and having a common set of skills opens us up to a new possibility. Mm-hmm. And the another look at sort of the shift that I see that's happening. I'm really aware everybody's like, oh, there's a shift happening. It's really changing. So like, there's been this sort of battle of talk about like evil or good. There's a lot of this in our telling, and so again, the black and the white ends up being this sort of either or choice. I can either be the villain and get what, the villain's all about get what I want, the expression thing. The villain has an agenda that's about the light comes in for everybody, right? But there's this battle, and yet what I see is when you try to find balance in between of being human and transhuman, it ends up in this mushy gray, and as deeply human, deep conscious as we possibly can at the time, breaks open Technicolor. Right. Opens up options that just aren't there otherwise. Challenges in communicating the new patterns. It's not just I get what I want. People are going to be living in love and collaboration, and it's a different way of moving. And the virus right now is really inviting. We can't see emotion. It doesn't work. And if we had collaboration right from the start, whether it's between countries and individuals, there was a possibility up about how we handle it, what's happening in the world. So it's a big learning and a big opportunity. The new normal, we have to be able to respond and be in improv with each other so that we can create and still hold like the vision. You and I are very aligned. And I know a lot of the people that are watching, we're passionate about there's a knowing of what's possible. There's a knowing in what's possible in the world. And we have to practice to do that with each other.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to move forward without collaborating, without figuring out for ourselves, without, and leveling up our skills around how do we collaborate and how do we communicate effectively? How do we honor each other? How do we honor the differences in each other? How do we allow the connection between a group of people to create something bigger and better than anyone could come up with on their own? I do feel like this is a big part of the new world, what we're moving into, and that you have these vital skills that are pretty unique and very functional to help us, get there.
Thank you. And I would say just in a one thing that, with the stance, one of the one benefit that I think is so important is that collaboration and that new vision has to include empaths and people of service in it. You have to get your desires met. You have to be able to feel resourced and include yourselves. And I've had to learn this over the years, include myself in the oneness that I'm serving, include myself, right, bigger picture. So that means you have to be able to know what your desires are and move from there in your own power in order to be able to create it. That.
All right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I so appreciate. I mean, I feel like I've learned so much from you. Really, I've been so appreciating the collaboration between you and I, and and your willingness to also learn my perspective and my point of view and the way it interacts.
I love learning new stuff. So yeah, that's definitely it's so. I think we all have to do that. We all have to, stay humble and open, and work with the beginner's mind, and just keep learning, keep growing. That's part of it's super important. And so thank you so much, Trish, for sharing. Can if people want to find out more about your work, where can they find you?
Yeah, I've got a new site coming up, but in the meantime, if you go to the4forces.com, that's the current website, and there is a link on there actually if you want to sign up to link, and it'll bring you to a free download. I've written a book that's not published yet, and I've actually been deciding that I'm probably going to write the book I just wrote. but there is a book that's available. That's a review. It still needs editing, getting feedback on it, but it actually has in there in chapter non the exercise that we just went over today, so people can download the whole book for free,
Cool.
and get a copy of that exercise that we did in the during our talk here.
Yeah, so it's the4forces.com is the four forces.
Spelled out. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you spell it out, the4forces.com, and that's where you can find Trish and her work. And it's certainly worth doing that. And Trish also does individual coaching and facilitating, and she's a very powerful coach. She can move you forward in your life like very few other people can. So so that's also something, if you feel like you're drawn to her and her work, you could talk to her about. Find her on Facebook and at that website if you want to get with her. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was a fabulous conversation. It was good to see you here, and let's keep the jazz improv dance going.
Sounds great. Right.
All right. Thanks, honey. And thank you, all of you guys, for being here today. I really appreciate you tuning in, and see a lot of my peeps. Hi, Lydia. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Linda. Hi, Rubel. Rubel's here. Hi, Rubel.
Oh, hey, Rubel.
And yeah, so nice to see you all here. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.
Great.
Bye.